5 years after the explosion that took his team, Navy SEAL Rowan Hale still woke with fire in his lungs and silence pressing on his chest. The world had moved on, but he hadn't. On a frozen afternoon, while walking past a quiet park, his steps slowed. A young woman sat on the ground, holding a German Shepherd close, a small sign resting beside her. $5 for sale. The dog didn't beg. He didn't move. He only watched, steady, alert, waiting. And in those eyes Rowan saw the same look his fallen K9 once had. Loyal, wounded, still standing guard. He didn't offer money. He offered them shelter. And something broken began to breathe again. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, hit subscribe so you never miss another story of loyalty, courage, and heart. Your support truly means the world. Winter pressed down on Duluth like a held breath. Snow clung to rooftops and sidewalks, muting the city into shades of gray and white. The air was so cold it burned the lungs on the first inhale. Rowan Hale walked alone. At 35, he carried himself with the posture of a man trained to stay alert even when exhaustion weighed him down. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a build shaped by years of discipline rather than vanity. His dark hair was kept short, not for style, but habit. A trimmed beard shadowed a jaw that looked carved by restraint rather than age. His eyes, gray, sharp, and permanently tired, held the look of someone who never truly rested, even when asleep. Rowan lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of Duluth, chosen for its distance from noise and people. 5 years earlier, military doctors had told him his nervous system would never fully recover. The word discharge had sounded gentle on paper, but in reality it meant isolation, routine, and learning how to survive inside his own head. He lived on a VA benefit of about $1,480 a month. Every dollar was accounted for. He kept a small notebook in his jacket pocket where he wrote expenses in tight, careful lines. Rent, heat, electricity, food, medication. There was no room for error. That morning, he had walked to the benefits office, then stopped by a discount store on the way home. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed faintly above his head. He picked up the essentials: milk, bread, eggs, a few cans of soup, a small bottle of painkillers, and the cheapest thermal gloves he could find. Nothing extra. Nothing unnecessary. When he stepped back into the cold, his wallet was lighter, though not empty. Enough for a simple meal later, nothing more. The walk back took him through a narrow public park. In warmer months it held laughter and movement, but now it stood abandoned. Snow buried the benches. Bare trees stretched upward like skeletal fingers. The air felt suspended, as if the world itself were holding still. Then the siren screamed. A police cruiser cut through the far side of the park, lights flashing, sound echoing sharply between buildings. The noise hit Rowan like a physical blow. His body reacted before his mind could intervene. His shoulders stiffened. His chest locked. His breath vanished. Heat surged through him, sudden and violent. His vision narrowed until the world collapsed into fragments. White snow, black shadows, red light. The sound twisted into something else entirely. 5 years earlier, he had been leading a small team through a foreign port city. Their mission: extract hostages and secure sensitive materials from a warehouse rigged to erase itself if compromised. He remembered the smell of metal and oil, the faint hum beneath the floor, the wrongness of it all. He had seen the signs too late. He'd shoved his team backward, lunged toward a thick concrete support wall, and shouted a warning that barely escaped his throat. The explosion came anyway. The blast had hurled him into the wall, knocking the air from his lungs. Debris rained down. Sound disappeared. When consciousness returned, the world was silent in a way that felt obscene. No voices, no movement, no answers. 4 teammates gone, 1 K9 gone, and him alive for reasons he still couldn't fully explain. In the park, Rowan dropped to one knee. Snow soaked through his pants as he pressed a gloved hand to the ground, forcing sensation into his body. Cold. Sharp. Real. He counted silently. Inhale, 4, hold, 4, exhale, 4, hold, 4, again. He named what he could see: a bench, a tree, a light pole, footprints in the snow. The world slowly widened. The siren faded into the distance, replaced by the soft hush of falling snow and the distant hum of traffic. His breath steadied. Rowan stood slowly, adjusting his coat, shoulders tight as if bracing against something unseen. His face remained unreadable, but inside, exhaustion curled deep in his chest. He wasn't afraid anymore, just tired of carrying memories that refused to stay buried. He bent down, picked up the grocery bag, and slung it over his arm. Snow gathered on his boots as he resumed walking, each step measured, deliberate. He did not look back. He moved through the park the way he moved through life now, quietly, carefully, one breath at a time, trying to remember how to live in a world that kept moving without him. The wind grew sharper as Rowan moved deeper into the park. Snow drifted across the path in soft, uneven waves, settling into the folds of his boots. The world felt hollow here, as if sound itself had learned to keep its distance. That was when he saw her. She sat beneath a flickering street lamp near the far edge of the walkway, where the light barely reached the ground. Her back was slightly hunched, her arms wrapped tightly around a German shepherd pressed against her chest. She looked young, maybe 27. But exhaustion had settled into her posture like something far older. Her frame was slender, almost fragile, wrapped in a coat that had long lost its warmth. The fabric sagged at the shoulders, the sleeves too short for her arms. Wisps of dark brown hair escaped from beneath a worn knit hat, clinging to skin turned pale from the cold. Her face held quiet endurance rather than fear. There was no panic in her expression, only restraint, as if she had already learned that showing pain changed nothing. The dog rested against her, large but gaunt. His coat was black and tan, dulled by dirt and winter, the fur along his spine slightly raised from the cold. His ribs showed faintly beneath his coat, not from neglect, but from weeks of thin meals. One front leg bore a faint stiffness, healed wrong long ago. Still, he sat with a discipline that didn't belong to strays. His ears drooped low, not in submission, but in fatigue. When his eyes lifted to meet Rowan's, they were clear and steady, alert without fear, patient without hope. Between them lay a piece of cardboard weighed down by a small stone. The handwriting was uneven, shaped by cold fingers. $5 for sale. Rowan stopped walking. The park seemed to grow quieter, as if the world itself had paused to watch what he would do next. He felt the weight of the grocery bag in his hand, the faint clink of cans inside. His other hand drifted to his jacket pocket, brushing against the few folded bills he had left after the morning's errands. The dog did not move. That, more than anything, unsettled him. He had seen fear. He had seen desperation. He had seen animals trained to beg and people trained to perform their suffering for survival. But this was something else. The dog simply observed him, calm and unwavering, as if measuring the kind of man standing before him. A memory rose uninvited. A different dog, a different place. A moment suspended between life and loss. Rowan exhaled slowly, grounding himself in the cold air. He crouched a short distance away, careful not to crowd them. The girl's arms tightened slightly around the dog, protective but not hostile. "I'm not going to touch him," Rowan said quietly. His voice was low, roughened by disuse, but steady. The girl studied him for a long second before answering. "He doesn't like sudden movements." "I noticed," Rowan replied. Up close he could see the faint cracks in her composure, the way her fingers trembled just slightly, the tension in her shoulders that never fully released. She was holding herself together with effort, not ease. "My name's Eliza," she said at last. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "And this is Rook." Rook's ears twitched at his name, though he didn't move. "He's a good dog," she added, almost defensively. "He doesn't cause trouble." "I can see that," Rowan said. He shifted his weight, careful not to loom. From this distance, he could tell the dog had been trained. Not professionally, perhaps, but with patience and intention. Commands had been taught here. Trust had been built. Rowan reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded bill. He didn't extend it right away. He only held it, letting her see it existed. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to his face. "I'm not selling him," she said quickly, her voice tightening. I don't know what else to do." The words landed heavier than she probably intended. Rowan nodded once. He understood that sentence far too well. He stepped closer and gently set the bill on the edge of the cardboard. "I'm not buying him," he said. "Just helping." Her breath hitched. She didn't reach for the money. For a moment, neither of them moved. Snow drifted between them, silent and patient. Rook shifted slightly, placing his body more fully against Eliza's legs. His eyes never left Rowan's face. Not with suspicion, something closer to recognition. Rowan straightened slowly. His chest felt tight, but not from panic. From something else, something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. He didn't know why he stayed there, standing in the cold, watching the girl and the dog breathe together like one fragile thing. He only knew that walking away felt heavier than staying, and so he stayed. The cold pressed deeper as evening crept in, the kind of cold that didn't rush but settled slowly into bone and breath. Snow whispered across the empty park, gathering along the path where Rowan Hale stood, hands buried in his jacket pockets, facing the girl and the dog. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Rowan broke the silence, his voice low and careful, as if volume alone might fracture something fragile. "Why are you selling him?" The girl's grip tightened around the dog's collar. Her shoulders drew inward, not defensively, but protectively. When she spoke, her voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. "I don't want to," she said. "I just want him to have a better life." She swallowed and looked down, snow gathering on her lashes. Rowan studied her more closely now. She couldn't have been much older than 27. Her frame was slim, almost fragile beneath the worn coat that hung too loosely from her shoulders. Strands of dark brown hair slipped free from a fraying knit hat, brushing cheeks pale from cold and exhaustion. Her hands were red and cracked, fingers stiff from the cold, but the way she held the dog was careful, gentle, practiced. The dog remained still. He was a German shepherd, black and tan, his frame lean but strong beneath the wear of hunger. One foreleg bore the faint stiffness of an old injury, yet his posture was controlled, deliberate. His ears rested low but alert. His eyes, clear, steady, unblinking, never left Rowan. That gaze struck something deep. It wasn't fear, it wasn't submission, it was watchfulness. Rowan shifted slightly, grounding his boots into the snow. "Where do you sleep?" he asked. The girl hesitated, then lifted her chin just enough to meet his eyes. "Under the bridge, by the river. It blocks the wind a little." Her words landed heavier than she intended. Rowan felt his chest tighten. "When did you last eat?" She exhaled slowly. 2 days ago." There was no drama in her voice, no plea, just fact. Rowan turned his head slightly and pulled his phone from his pocket. The screen glowed against the dim evening as he checked the weather alert he'd ignored earlier. Wind chill advisory. -20 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. Exposure risk, severe. His jaw tightened. "You won't make it through the night out there," he said quietly. The girl stiffened. "I'm not asking for—" "I know," Rowan said. "I'm not offering charity." She watched him closely now, suspicion flickering beneath exhaustion. "I have a place," he continued. "It's small, not warm enough to be comfortable, but warm enough to survive." Her eyes dropped to Rook. The dog shifted, leaning subtly against her leg, grounding her the way she grounded him. She hesitated. I don't want to be a problem. You're not, Rowan replied. You're cold. Silence stretched between them, thick but not hostile. Snow continued to fall, soft and relentless. Rook lifted his head, his gaze locking with Rowan's. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or instinct. The dog did not move away. Finally, Eliza nodded once. A small motion, fragile, decisive. Just until it's safe, she said. Rowan inclined his head. That's all I'm offering. He didn't step forward. He didn't rush her. He simply turned slightly, angling his body toward the path leading out of the park. After a moment, she followed. The three of them moved slowly through the falling snow, one man carrying years of survival, one woman carrying the weight of loss, and one dog walking between them, steady as a compass needle. Behind them, the park fell quiet again. Ahead, the night waited. The apartment was quiet in a way that felt intentional. Not empty, not abandoned, just contained. The walls held warmth better than the world outside, and the faint hum of the heater filled the silence without demanding attention. Rowan closed the door gently behind them, the sound soft but final, like a line drawn between what had been and what might be allowed to exist now. The space was small but orderly. Everything had a place. A narrow table by the window, 2 chairs pushed in neatly, a couch with worn fabric but careful stitching, a shelf lined with folded clothes, arranged with the precision of someone who needed order to breathe. Nothing decorative. Nothing wasted. Rowan moved first, shedding his coat and hanging it by the door. He crouched near the heater and turned it up slightly, testing the air with his palm. Then he reached for a folded blanket and laid it out against the warmest wall. You can sit there, he said quietly, nodding toward it. Liza hesitated before lowering herself down. Her movements were cautious, as if she were afraid the floor might give way beneath her. Once seated, she pulled the blanket around her shoulders, her body visibly loosening as warmth reached her skin. Her breathing slowed, though her eyes still tracked every sound. Rowan poured water into a cup and handed it to her. His fingers were rough, calloused, bearing the faint scars of old work. She accepted it with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once, then turned toward Rook. The dog stood patiently, head lowered, tail still. His coat looked darker under the dim light, black and tan fur dulled by cold and exhaustion. He was lean, but not frail. His build still strong beneath the wear of hardship. One of his front legs bore an old stiffness, but he carried it with quiet discipline. Rowan laid a second blanket near the heater, then placed a bowl of water beside it. He hesitated before opening the bag of groceries, calculating silently. After a moment, he divided what he had: bread, a small portion of meat, something warm enough to feel like a meal. Rook ate slowly, deliberately. No rushing, no guarding, just quiet gratitude. Eliza watched with a mixture of relief and restraint, as if she didn't quite trust the safety yet. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, steady but tired. "My father died when I was young," she said. "My mother raised us alone. She worked 2 jobs, never complained." She paused, eyes fixed on the floor. "My brother helped. He always did." A faint smile touched her lips, brief and fragile. "He was brave, always running toward things instead of away from them." She didn't say his name. "He joined the military because he wanted to protect people who couldn't protect themselves." Her voice wavered. "He died 5 years ago." Rowan stiffened almost imperceptibly. "I'm sorry," he said. Eliza nodded. "I didn't talk about him much after that. My mother couldn't handle it. Neither could I." She drew a slow breath. "Then she got sick. A car accident. The doctor said she needed treatment we couldn't afford. The house. It was all we had left." Rowan listened without interruption, his hands resting loosely at his sides. "A company had been trying to buy it for years," she continued. "They wanted the land, said it was part of some new development. My mom refused every time." Her jaw tightened. "After the accident, I had no choice." Her voice faltered, but she pressed on. "I sold it, paid the hospital bills, and when the money ran out, I didn't know where to go." Silence filled the room again. Rowan sat across from her, not too close, not too far. His face was worn, his jaw lined with the rough shadow of a beard that hadn't been shaved in days. His eyes carried something heavy, something buried deep beneath discipline and restraint. "I used to have a team," he said quietly. "Good people." He didn't elaborate. "They're gone now." Eliza looked at him, understanding without questions. The heater clicked softly. Outside, the wind pressed against the building, but inside the air remained still. For the first time in days, Eliza felt her shoulders drop. For the first time in longer than he cared to count, Rowan didn't feel the urge to run. They ate in silence, not uncomfortable, just careful. Rook lay between them, eyes half closed, body finally at rest. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, something fragile and unfamiliar took root. Safety, not permanent, not promised, but real, for tonight. The apartment had gone quiet in the way only deep night could manage. Outside, the wind pressed against the walls in low, steady waves, carrying the hush of falling snow. Inside, the heater hummed softly, fighting the cold inch by inch. Rowan lay on the couch, one arm draped over his eyes. Sleep had come reluctantly, like a visitor unsure it was welcome. His body rested, but his mind hovered just beneath the surface, waiting. Then it came. A sharp breath tore from his chest. His eyes flew open, pupils wide, unfocused. For a split second, the ceiling vanished, replaced by fire and metal and the sound of pressure collapsing inward. His heart slammed violently against his ribs. His hands clawed at the air, searching for something that wasn't there. He tried to speak, but no sound came. The room spun. Heat rushed through him, followed by cold. His breathing fractured, short, shallow gasps that refused to slow. Across the room, a shape moved. Rook rose without a sound. The dog didn't bark. He didn't rush. He approached with purpose, each step measured, controlled. His body placed itself between Rowan and the empty space ahead of him, blocking the line of sight like a shield. Then he sat, close enough to feel, not close enough to overwhelm. Rook lowered his head slightly and began to breathe. Deep, slow, steady. His chest expanded and fell with a deliberate rhythm. In, out, in, out. Rowan's eyes locked onto the movement. His own breathing stuttered, then faltered, then, slowly, began to follow. His shaking hands clenched the fabric of the couch as if anchoring himself to the present. The images retreated. The sound faded. His pulse eased. Not all at once, but enough. Rook remained still, watchful, patient, his body warm and solid against the cold night. Minutes passed. When Rowan finally exhaled fully, his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. His eyes burned, but the terror had loosened its grip. Across the room, Eliza sat upright on the edge of the blanket. Her hair was loose now, falling in soft waves around her face. In the dim light, her features looked younger, softer, still tired, but alert. She hadn't moved. "I'm sorry," Rowan murmured, his voice hoarse. She shook her head. "You don't have to be." Her gaze shifted to Rook, who still hadn't left his position. "He does that," she said quietly. "When someone's scared." Rowan swallowed. "He's trained." "Yes," she said. "Not officially, but he learned." She hesitated, then continued. "My brother taught him." Her voice carried pride, but also something heavier beneath it. "He used to say that panic is like drowning," she went on. "You don't fight it. You float until your body remembers how to breathe." Rook lifted his head slightly, ears twitching at the sound of her voice. "He practiced with him whenever he came home," she added. "Not commands, just presence." Rowan nodded slowly. He understood more than he wanted to admit. "I didn't know dogs could do that," he said. "They can," she replied. If someone takes the time. Silence returned, gentler this time. Eventually, Rowan shifted back against the couch, exhaustion pulling at him again. Rook remained close, though his posture loosened, his breathing deep and even. Eliza curled slightly beneath the blanket, watching the two of them with quiet attention. The room felt different now, less hollow, less sharp. Morning arrived softly. Gray light crept through the narrow window, settling over the room like a held breath. Rowan woke slowly, aware first of warmth, then of weight. Rook lay near his feet, head resting on the floor, eyes open but calm. Eliza sat nearby, knees drawn to her chest, watching the snow drift past the glass. "He didn't move all night," she said softly. "Not once." Rowan exhaled through his nose. "He didn't have to." She studied him for a moment. "You've had nightmares before." It wasn't a question. "Yes." She nodded, understanding without pressing further. "He used to wake up like that too," she said quietly. "After everything." Rowan's gaze dropped. "He sounds like a good man." "He was," she replied. "Still is, I think, wherever he is." They fell into silence again, not empty this time, but thoughtful. Rook shifted slightly, stretching before settling once more. The room felt steadier with him there, like an anchor dropped into unseen water. For the first time in a long while, Rowan didn't feel like the night had won, not entirely. Snow thickened overnight, layering the world in a quiet white weight that pressed against windows and softened every sound. Morning came slowly, gray light filtering through the glass as if unsure it was welcome. Rowan woke before the others, as he always did. The habit was old, drilled into muscle memory long before he'd learned how to live without orders. He sat up carefully on the couch, listening. The apartment was still. Eliza slept curled near the heater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, one arm tucked beneath her chin. In sleep, the tension usually etched into her face had softened. She looked younger like this, fragile but peaceful. Rook lay between her and the warmth, his body angled protectively, ears flicking at the smallest sound. He opened one eye when Rowan moved, then relaxed when he recognized him. Rowan stood quietly and went to the small window. Outside, snow fell thick and steady, blurring the edges of the world. The street below was empty. No cars, no voices, just silence and cold. He checked the thermostat. Too low. With practiced movements, he adjusted the heater and wrapped another blanket around Eliza without waking her. Then he turned toward the small kitchenette, already calculating how long the food would last if he stretched it carefully. They fell into a rhythm over the next few days. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed. Eliza helped where she could. She cleaned the narrow counter, rinsed cups, folded blankets with careful precision. She moved like someone afraid of taking up too much space. When she spoke, it was soft but thoughtful, her voice steadying with each passing day. Rowan repaired what he could. He tightened a loose window latch, sealed a crack where cold air crept in, checked the heater twice a day. His hands remembered work even when his mind didn't want to. It grounded him. Rook became the quiet center of the room. He lay near the heater most of the time, rising only when someone moved too quickly or when the door creaked. He watched everything, not with fear, but awareness. When Rowan did light stretches near the wall, Rook followed with curious precision, mimicking movements in a clumsy, almost playful way. Once, when Rowan lost his balance, Rook bumped into his leg with a soft huff, and Eliza laughed, a sound that surprised them both. It was the first real laughter the apartment had heard in a long time. That night, snow piled high against the windows. Wind pressed harder. The world outside felt distant, sealed off. They sat near the heater, sharing a simple meal. Rowan ate less than he should have, pretending not to notice. Eliza noticed anyway, but said nothing. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. He looked at her. "Do what?" "Carry everything." He gave a small shrug. "I'm used to it." She studied him for a moment. "That doesn't mean you should be." The words lingered between them. Later, as the fire hummed low, Eliza reached into the worn backpack she kept close. She hesitated before pulling out a folded photograph. The edges were creased, the surface dulled by time and handling. "This was taken the day he enlisted," she said softly. Rowan turned. The photo showed a young man in uniform standing tall beside a younger version of Eliza. His posture was proud but relaxed, his smile genuine. His eyes, steady, focused, felt painfully familiar. Rowan's breath caught. The room tilted. He knew that face. The sharp jawline, the calm intensity, the faint scar above the brow. Memories surged forward uninvited. Dust, heat, shouted commands, a hand on his shoulder just before everything went wrong. His chest tightened. "Eliza!" His voice barely carried. "What did you say his name was?" She looked at the photograph again, her fingers trembling slightly. "Caleb," she whispered. "My brother." The room fell silent. Rowan's vision blurred as the weight of recognition crashed over him. His mind screamed to deny it, to push the truth away, but it was already there, carved into memory. Caleb, the man who had covered the left flank, the one who'd laughed before the mission, promising beers when it was over, the one who never made it out. Rowan's breath faltered, his hands clenched at his sides. His voice broke. "I knew him." Eliza's head snapped up, her eyes searched his face, confusion giving way to something sharper. "What do you mean?" "Knew him." Rowan swallowed hard. "He was on my team." The silence that followed was different from all the others that had come before. It was heavy, alive. Eliza's face drained of color. Her breath caught, then shuddered. You were there?" He nodded slowly. Her hands tightened around the photo. She didn't cry. Not yet. She simply stared at him, trying to reconcile the man sitting in front of her with the memory she had carried for 5 years. "I thought—" Her voice trembled. "I thought no one came back." Rowan's chest ached. "I did." The weight of that truth pressed down between them, shared grief, shared history, colliding at last. Rook shifted closer, placing his body between them instinctively, sensing the surge of emotion. His presence steadied the room, grounding it. Eliza lowered her gaze to the photograph again, then to the floor. "I didn't know," she whispered. "Neither did I," Rowan said quietly. Outside, the snow continued to fall, thick and unbroken, sealing the world away. Inside, 2 lives touched by the same loss sat in silence, no longer strangers, but not yet whole, and nothing would ever be the same again. The room felt smaller after the truth settled between them. Rowan sat still, his hands resting on his knees, eyes fixed on a point just beyond the floor. Eliza hadn't moved either. The air seemed heavier now, thick with what had finally been spoken aloud. "I didn't know," she said again, her voice barely holding. "I swear I didn't." Rowan nodded once. His throat felt tight, but his voice remained steady. "I know." Rook shifted between them, sensing the tension. His body leaned closer to Eliza, but his gaze never left Rowan. There was no fear in his eyes, only attention. Rowan exhaled slowly. "The mission went wrong," he said. "It was supposed to be clean, in and out, but something was off. I felt it before the blast." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "There were signs, patterns that didn't make sense. I moved the team, tried to create space. The explosion still hit." His jaw tightened. They didn't make it. Eliza's breath hitched, but she didn't look away. "I survived because I was thrown clear," he continued. "Not because I was better. Just lucky." Silence settled again, not empty, weighted. Eliza finally spoke, her voice steady but fragile. "My mother's accident didn't feel right either." Rowan looked up. She'd been followed, Eliza said, not constantly, just enough to make her nervous. She noticed a dark SUV near the house more than once. When she mentioned it to the company, they said it was nothing. Her fingers tightened together. Then the accident happened. They said she lost control, but the brake line, it didn't look right. Rowan didn't interrupt. She was still alive when they took her to the hospital, Eliza continued. But everything moved so fast. Paperwork, signatures, bills. They kept pushing the sale while she was unconscious. The room felt colder. When she died, Eliza whispered, I didn't even know what I was signing anymore. Rowan's expression hardened, not with anger, but with clarity. Then we start from the beginning, he said quietly. Over the next few hours, they worked in careful steps. Rowan laid everything out on the small table, documents Eliza still had, folded receipts, hospital forms, the property sale agreement. He didn't rush. He read each line twice, sometimes 3 times. Patterns emerged. The same company name appeared repeatedly. A subsidiary linked to development projects near the lake. Clauses buried in legal language. A timeline that moved too quickly to be coincidence. They wrote everything down. Then came the questions. Who arrived first at the scene? Who signed the emergency transfer papers? Who benefited? Rowan made notes with practiced precision. This wasn't instinct. It was process. Something he hadn't used in years but never forgot. When they ran out of paper, he pulled out his phone. I know someone, he said. FBI. We worked together years ago. Eliza looked uncertain. Will he help? Rowan hesitated. If the facts line up, yes. He stepped into the hallway to make the call. Jonah Reeves answered on the 3rd ring. Jonah was in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered with close-cropped dark hair flecked with gray. His face carried the calm of someone who'd seen too much but refused to let it harden him. Years ago, he and Rowan had crossed paths during a joint task operation. They hadn't spoken since. Rowan Hale, Jonah said. Didn't expect to hear your voice again. Yeah, Rowan replied. I wish it were under better circumstances. He explained, carefully, clearly. No embellishment, no emotion, just facts. When he finished, there was a long pause on the line. This isn't small, Jonah said finally. If what you're saying holds up, this could be a pattern. Multiple properties, shell companies, pressure tactics. Can you look into it? Rowan asked. I already am, Jonah replied. Send me everything you've got. Names, documents, timelines. I'll cross-check it with our databases. And the company? I'll pull their history. If there's something there, we'll find it. Rowan ended the call and leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Inside, Eliza sat with Rook beside her. She looked up as Rowan returned. He's checking, Rowan said. That's all we can do for now? She nodded, clutching the edges of her sleeves. Thank you. Outside, snow continued to fall, soft but unrelenting. Later that night, Rowan reviewed everything one last time. When he finished, he sent the files. Minutes passed. Then his phone buzzed. Confirmed. Enough to open a formal investigation. Warrants pending. Rowan closed his eyes. The weight in his chest shifted. Not gone, but no longer crushing. He looked at Eliza, then at Rook, who sat alert beside her, ears lifted as if sensing the shift in the air. It's started, Rowan said quietly. Not justice, not yet, but movement. And for the first time since the explosion, that felt like something close to hope. The first knock came before dawn. It was firm, deliberate, not urgent, but final. The kind of knock that carried authority without needing to raise its voice. Rowan was already awake. He rose from the chair near the window, where he had spent most of the night listening to the quiet breathing of the room. Eliza stirred slightly from the couch. Rook lifted his head at once, ears forward, body alert but still. Rowan opened the door. 2 figures stood in the hallway. The first was Jonah Reeves, his expression composed but resolute. Beside him stood a woman Rowan had never met, tall, lean, with steel-gray eyes and dark hair pulled into a low, practical knot. Her posture was upright, efficient. The kind of person who wasted no movement. Special Agent Sarah Collins, she said calmly. Financial Crimes Division. Her voice was even, measured. Her gaze missed nothing. We're ready, Jonah added. Warrants are signed." Rowan nodded once and stepped aside. The operation unfolded without noise or spectacle. No shouting, no chaos. Just doors opening, files being seized, names being recorded. Evidence collected with methodical precision. The company responsible, hidden behind layers of shell corporations, had been building pressure for years. Forced sales, threats disguised as contracts, accidents made to look like coincidence. But patterns do not stay buried forever. By mid-morning, the truth stood in plain view. The land near the lake had been targeted long before Eliza's mother ever fell ill. Her refusal to sell made her a problem. The accident was not random. The medical delays, the rushed paperwork, the legal fog that followed, none of it was coincidence. Eliza stood beside Rowan as Jonah confirmed it all. Her face was pale, but steady. "So she didn't die because we were careless," she said quietly. "No," Jonah replied. "She died because she stood in the way." Eliza closed her eyes. A single breath left her chest, slow and deep. The company's assets were frozen, executives detained, charges prepared, coercion, fraud, obstruction, criminal negligence. The machinery that had crushed her family was finally grinding to a halt. Later that afternoon, Rowan stood with Eliza outside the building as snow drifted down in soft sheets. "They'll return the property," Jonah said. "Or compensate fully. Your choice." Eliza nodded, absorbing the words. "I don't want to live there again," she said after a moment. "But I want it to mean something." Rowan understood. That evening, as the sky darkened and the cold returned, the apartment felt different. Not heavy, settled. Rook lay in his usual spot, head resting on his paws, eyes tracking the room. He rose once to check the door when a neighbor passed, then returned calmly, satisfied. Over the following weeks, something new began to form. Not a rescue center, not a clinic, a space, a place where veterans could sit without explanation, where silence wasn't uncomfortable, where shaking hands weren't judged, where people could breathe without being asked to justify the weight they carried. They called it Still Watching. The name came naturally. Rowan helped where he could. He spoke when needed, listened when it mattered more. Eliza organized schedules, made coffee, remembered names. She moved with quiet strength now, her grief no longer hollow but shaped into purpose. Rook became the heart of the place. He seemed to know who needed him most. He would settle beside those who couldn't meet anyone's eyes, rest his head on trembling knees, sit silently through tears without trying to fix them. Once, during a breathing exercise, he stood and let out a soft huff, then lay dramatically across the floor as if to demonstrate relaxation. Laughter followed. Gentle, surprised, healing in its own way. Rowan watched it all with quiet wonder. He still had nights when sleep came slowly, still had moments when the past pressed too close. But now, when it did, he wasn't alone. One evening, as snow fell again outside the windows, Rowan stood beside Eliza near the doorway. "I don't know how to say this the right way," he said. "I'm not fixed." She smiled softly. "Neither am I." He nodded. "But I can stand here, with you." She reached for his hand. "That's enough." Rook padded over and sat between them, solid and warm. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, no one was lost anymore. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't arrive with thunder or light from the sky. They come quietly. Through a door held open, a hand that doesn't let go, or a heart that chooses to stay when it would be easier to walk away. This story isn't really about pain. It's about what happens after pain. When someone dares to believe that love can still find a way through the cracks. Maybe you've known loss like this. Maybe you've carried memories that still ache when the world goes quiet. Or maybe you've been the one who showed kindness when someone else had nothing left. If so, this story is for you, because sometimes God doesn't answer us with loud miracles. Sometimes He sends a warm room on a cold night. A loyal soul who stays close. or a stranger who sees our pain and chooses not to look away. And maybe, just maybe, the miracle isn't that life becomes easy again, but that we don't have to face it alone anymore. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to check on someone who might be hurting quietly. A call, a kind word, a small act of grace. Those are the moments that change lives. And if this story brought you comfort, you're always welcome here. Feel free to share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Leave a comment if it stirred something in your heart. Your words might be the light someone else is waiting for. May God watch over you, keep you safe, and bring peace to your home. Wherever you are in the world, may you never